Governor Herbert, thank you for your remarks. Very fascinating how Utah County is one of the economic engines nationally. And the work that you and an entire team did to help get there is incredible. I can relate with some of your opening remarks as well. I walk through airports at times, traveling, Chicago, Atlanta, LA, and normally you're just going through there, but occasionally I'll have grown men just slow down, look me right in the eyes, stop, and I'm thinking, well, what's gonna happen? And they'll say, wait, I know you. You're that guy that's a great dancer. And I say, thank you. I did actually play basketball for a little while too, so hopefully I can dribble a ball as well, so I can relate with you. But on August 7th at 1 a.m., my wife woke me up in the middle of the night, and she said, it's happening. I'm going into labor. And I said, okay, let's roll. It's time to go. Our first two children, we had done the traditional. We had gone to a hospital. We had all the care necessary. Well, one of Janae and John's friends, one of our friends, had become close friends with Hannah. And they had talked for a while, and the bottom line is, Hannah had decided to do a home birth. I said, are you sure you want to do a home birth? And she said yes. And so she went into the labor for about an hour. The midwife arrived at our home at about 2:30 a.m. The baby was born by 3:45 a.m. And it was awesome. It was amazing. At 6 a.m., our midwife came in and had a little conversation with Hannah, my wife. And then Hannah came to me and said, hey, just so you know, our midwife had her wallet stolen out of her car this morning. And I said privately to Hannah, I said, it's impossible. There's a gate on the front of the community. It's impossible. She misplaced it. In the middle of the night, she got up. She was rushing out the door. She misplaced her wallet. Well, at 8 a.m., going out to the car, sure enough, her wallet, all the contents had been dumped out of the front of her car. Medication had been stolen out of the back of her car, and her backpack had been stolen. At 1 p.m., a video started circulating amongst the Mosses, myself, and a few other neighbors of across the street and burglary, an attempted burglary. This is all on video that's being sent around through text. Well, then, a police report was filed. We got all the footage. We tried to identify things. Nobody could really get much done in terms of leads, but then 2 weeks ago, it appears that attacker, that same attacker, who was wearing our midwife's backpack as he tried to break into our neighbor's house, showed up dead from an overdose. And so we live in tumultuous times. We all know that. The differences of opinion are growing more and more wide across all spectrums. Murders are up. We live in a tumultuous time. And it's an honor to be here with all of you as leaders, because each one of you helps build, has built, is building organizations that create jobs, that help others, that get involved in the community. And so, number one, I want to thank each one of you for the amazing work that you do. And I wanted to share a few things that I've noticed in terms of building organizations and building teams that have stood out to me over a career in professional sports and now in college sports. As a rookie in the NBA, I showed up at the Lakers. I played for a legendary coach, Phil Jackson. Probably no one has done or ever will repeat what he did as a coach. I don't know if he has 10 or 11 championships, but he has a book with basically a championship NBA ring on every finger. He brings everyone in to the huddle the very first day of practice, and he points to myself and another rookie, Slava Medvedenko, and he said, these two are the rookies. They are the lowest on the totem pole. These two are lower than whale droppings on the bottom of the ocean. Okay, thanks, Phil. We're lower than whale droppings. Well, what that meant was any player on the team could come up to us and say, carry my bag. Go buy me a pair of black socks. Go get this or that in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. Anything, and we had to do it. And we did it. Some of the things, we were playing the Utah Jazz. Ron Harper had to go get the black socks. He had forgotten the black socks at home. When we left on road trips, somebody gave me a nice, crisp $100 bill. And I had to go get 24 double-doubles from In-N-Out Burger, bring it to the plane. And so here I am, the lowest man on a great team, the lowest person, me and this other guy, how am I supposed to contribute? How am I supposed to make an impact on the team? And early on, I literally felt like I didn't do much to help our team. We'd be in team film sessions. Shaquille O'Neal, a Hall of Famer, would sit in the upper left row of the film session. Kobe would sit behind me in the upper right. You're sitting in there with two of the greatest players that have ever lived. How in the world would I be able to contribute to help the team? I didn't think I could. And then one day our coach got up and he said, every single person in this room is going to help our team win games. Every single person. That right there impacted me. It impacted me because it made me realize that in every business, in every community organization, in government, you have your superstars, then you have a lot of people that are the supporting cast. I was a supporting cast member for my entire career. And I came to realize that I could make a contribution. We won 2 championships during that time. And Tex Winter, an 80-year-old coach, think about the life experience and the knowledge and wisdom that he was probably actually 85. He gets up there in front of the entire team after we had won it, and almost crying, he says, sure, we may not have won it without Shaquille or without Kobe, but there's no way we could have ever won without the contribution from every single man in this locker room. It made me feel good. I felt like I contributed, and in some small way I did, even if it was just trying to play hard in practice to make the main players better. And so right now at UVU, I preach this to our players. And I'm sure many of you extremely successful leaders preach this to your organizations. And even I'll share, at one point, I actually started in a playoff game. Phil Jackson said, hey, you'll be the starting power forward when we play the Minnesota Timberwolves. I was so nervous. We're at Minnesota. I could barely breathe. And Shaquille came up to me. He said, whatever you do, don't try to do too much, but don't try to do too little. And so I really want to emphasize, and again, I tell our players this, every single person can contribute and will contribute and has a huge role on this team. People matter. People matter. There's a human element to everything. On some of those teams, there were major conflicts, major. Guys using farming language at each other. Stuff that you can't really go into here, but at one point, there was a lot of pent-up feelings. And one, kind of younger player stood up and addressed a few players and said, hey, you need to value our contribution a little bit more. And when he stood up and expressed that, he was attacked. He was attacked. All types of the language from the farm, and he gets ready to respond. So he stands up. He had sit back down. He stood up again. He said, well, I have something to tell you guys. And he looked at a couple players and he said, I love you and I love you. And he got up and he left the room. I was in shock. In pro sports, to see that, are you kidding me? It completely disarmed the entire tension of the locker room. Well, one of the players that was attacking him ran out of the locker room a few minutes later and gave him a huge hug. And so the human element is important, as we all know, and that was kind of something firsthand that I saw. Coaches. I've played for many different coaches. There are some coaches where I've never seen the inside of their home, ever. You spend hours and hours and hours together. In college, in high school, in the NBA. My high school coach had us over to the house every year for the Final Four. He was this authority figure, but he'd have us over to the house, cooking up hot dogs, cooking up hamburgers. We got to know him. Some of the coaches I had, never once to the house. I had a professional coach, Flip Saunders in Minnesota. He had us over to the house. He had us over for food. I had a little basketball camp for kids in Minnesota. He's calling me, when can I come help at your camp? You think that didn't help build a relationship and a bond? But where I would literally run through a brick wall for that coach. Relationships are so important. Leadership. Think about the best leaders you've ever met. And again, we're in a room with some great leaders. Think about the best leaders you've ever known. Think about the qualities that they've had, the characteristics, some of the specific actions that you've seen them do. Well, I've got a little scar here on my right thumb. I took a charge in a game. I somehow got my thumb pinned underneath myself, and I broke my bone in a split second. I was discouraged, depressed, had surgery that night, was out for 2 or 3 days. Finally, when I returned home to practice, when I returned back to practice, Kevin Garnett, a Hall of Fame player. Some of you basketball fans know him, a Hall of Fame player. I walk into the training room, and he stops me. I'd been gone for a few days. Typically in pro sports, you're always, no one misses practice. Nobody misses practice ever. And he said, "Hey, how you doing? How was everything at the house this morning?" I said, "At the house? Shoot, everything was fine. How were things at the house?" I was trying to understand that question. I didn't understand it. So, I got there, I did my rehab while everyone else practiced. Well, I got home later that day, and I found there was 30 balloons and a box of chocolates that Kevin Garnett had sent me as a get well. Who does that? What NBA player does that? Nobody. But he was the best player, and at that time we had a good team. He was named MVP of the NBA that year. But it shows, he was on top of the world, but he was willing to help out one of us supporting cast members. And I felt appreciated. And I probably worked harder because of it. I went back to business school, and this was interesting. The most popular business school class was taught by a guy named Irv Grossbeck. And he had built a lot of businesses, a lot of successful businesses. And this really impacted. He said that he had received a bunch of resumes. He had done all the interviews. It was down to 3 finalists. And for director of sales, national director of sales. And one of the finalists came to him and said, "Hey, by the way, I lied on my resume. I didn't have such and such advanced degree. Just wanted to let you know." And Irv, literally, he hired him anyway. And the point he made to us, his students, he said, "Hey, in life, everybody deserves a free pass sometimes, from time to time." And I have benefited from a free pass from time to time. And with our own players, when possible, a second chance is nice. A second chance is nice. Flip Saunders, the coach I had talked about earlier, he had a great quote. We had signed a player who had had some severe problems in the past, and he was asked about it publicly in a newspaper. And he said, "Hey, if it weren't for second chances, a lot of us would be out of a job." That's always stayed with me. That's always impacted me. Setting clear expectations, okay? Phil Jackson, and this is something I try to do. I know we're getting close on time here. Keep those flashcards coming up. 5 minutes, perfect. Phil Jackson, he had one thing that he would fight you on. In pro sports, you're never late. You're always early. And what I respected about Phil is he held the best players accountable. So it wasn't all the supporting cast members are always on time, but Shaq and Kobe, you can be late. No. I remember Shaquille coming to center court 2 minutes late, and Phil Jackson saying, "Shaq, you're late. I'm fining you $200. And I also remember Shaq's response, Phil, I was driving down the 405 in LA. There was a truck, it was overturned. Chickens, eggs everywhere, feathers in the air. And so whatever. Well, he used the same excuse 2 months later too, so we knew there was no overturned truck. But one time, the bus was supposed to leave at 10 a.m., and everyone was there except for Kobe. And we could all see Kobe coming through the lobby with his bodyguard. And by the way, Kobe was never late. Shaq was rarely late too. But Phil, it hit 10, and Phil starts screaming at the bus driver, let's go, put your foot on the gas. And you see Kobe. The bus starts to move. You see Kobe. So if you were Kobe and you see the bus starting to move, you're probably going to run and get on the bus. Not Kobe. He was just calm as ever, just walking. And that's what made Kobe great. He was unfazed by anything. So finally, the bus driver just stopped the bus. And Phil kept, why are you stopping the bus? Let's go. The bus driver was the one who stopped the bus and let Kobe on. But Phil fought him the entire time. Core principles, core values, something small, but it's something big. It's part of a culture. It's part of a culture. I'll end with this. I wanted to talk more about failures, of which I have a long list, but I'll end with relationships. In my generation in sports, if the coach said, see that wall, just run through it. I don't care if you hurt your head, run through the wall. In my generation, we all would just run through the wall. We didn't ask why. We didn't ask questions. We did it, okay? The generation of players coming up now, they want to know why. They want to know why. And all the research shows it. And by the way, what a great quality. They're not going to just run through the wall. But if you explain the why, they will. You know, and so I'm extremely grateful to be able to coach at UVU. It's an honor to be amongst you. Thank you for all of the work that you do in the community, and we hope to see you at a UVU game soon. Thank you so much.